AM 630. WMAL.
6:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. We got a full show lined up for you. Coming up at 7:35, former CIA Director Porter Goss, 8:05 comedian David Allen Greer, and at 8:35 we have Brett Baer from your Fox News channel. On the Newsmaker hotline right now, however, is Montgomery County Council member. I'm having trouble with that today, Phil Andrews, and we are so glad to have you here today, Phil, because we have some questions, and it has to do with these pay raises that are being proposed for some union employees in Montgomery County. Right now, a committee has approved and sent forward to the full council a recommendation that was put forth by Ike Leggett that there be a 19.5% raise for firefighters, a 14.7% pay raise for police officers, and a 13.5% pay raise for other union employees. I guess my first question is this something that Montgomery County can afford right now?
These raises, which are raises that would be over a 2-year period for most employees, are unsustainable and they're irresponsible. The cost of them is $31 million next year. $43 million the year after that, and $73 million by the second year, and $85 million in the third year as they're fully annualized. Those are very big increases, and the increases in the salaries of 13.5% to 19.5%, as you described, which would apply to all employees in Montgomery County because they're passed along to non-represented employees too. Are excessive. They are not necessary. The county does not have trouble recruiting employees. We get lots of good applicants, excellent applicants for every position we hire, and we're having excellent retention as well. So the job of the county council and elected officials is to balance what is necessary in order to recruit and retain excellent employees with what the taxpayers can afford. Now, county employees do deserve a pay raise. It's been several years since they've had one, and they did sacrifice during the last 4 years. But it needs to be reasonable, and these raises are excessive. And look, we know what happened the last time Mr. Leggett proposed raises that were in this range. In 2008, Mr. Leggett proposed a pay raise that would have been a 10.5% pay raise for most fire and rescue employees in 2010,
right?
And that had to be eliminated when the recession hit, as did other raises as well. So we need to be careful. Now,
as you know, Ike Leggett was on this program earlier this week, and we mentioned the fact that you were very critical of these pay raises, that you had raised some concerns about them. Here's a little clip of how that interview went with Ike Leggett. Take a listen.
So when Phil Andrews, who sits on the county council, when he says in the Washington Post that Montgomery County can't afford this and this is reckless and irresponsible, is he lying?
Yes. In fact, not only that, he's part of the problem. For years, when I came in, the previous county executive had increases of 42% over 4 years of the tax-supported budget. For the next 5 years, for the same budgets, 5 years in a row, I had a cumulative growth of 0. He voted for that 42%, 14% in 1 year. I mean, this is just simply something he's doing in order to enhance himself to run for county executive.
So that's a pretty serious thing that Ike Leggett has said there in the world of politics. It's a very bold thing to call somebody who disagrees with you a liar, but he indeed did call you a liar. What is your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that when I ran for re-election in 2006, I was strongly endorsed by Ike Leggett. And so he sure didn't have that same opinion in 2006, right after those budgets were adopted, than he does now. That's quite a change in his view. The other thing I would say is that those budgets in 2004 and 2006 included the first property tax rate cuts in many years. And those were cuts that I had, property tax rate cuts that I had led the fight for. And those gave homeowners who were being hit hard by skyrocketing assessments during that time some real relief.
But are you troubled by the use of the word liar here?
Well, I'm surprised he would resort to that, but I focus on what the actual facts are and what we have seen and what we saw in 2008 when Mr. Leggett proposed large pay increases similar to what he's proposing now was that they were unsustainable. And so we have recent experience to go from. And I sure hope the county council doesn't make the same mistake it made that year when it approved the raises that Mr. Leggett was advocating at that time.
Phil Andrews, I want to ask you about the transit Silver Spring Hub transit station, because it is in the news this morning. We've just found out that Metro has told Montgomery County that they're not going to operate the Silver Spring Transit Center, even if all of the repairs that need to be made are made. It's 16 years now. It's gone so over budget. Who is at fault here for what can only be described as a complete failure in management and in bureaucracy with the Silver Spring Transit Center?
Well, the development you just described, that Metro is now saying they will not operate it, is an extremely serious development in this whole mess. And now I think that the county is going to have to take a hard look at what happens now in terms of that transit center's operations. There's no question this has been a problem. The project has been poorly managed from the start in terms of the oversight of it, and there seems to be a lot of mistakes made by the contractors, as documented in the report.
Yeah, but the cost of operating this thing and maintaining it has certainly not been taken into account by your council. I mean, what are you going to do about this? It's possible that you've spent $120 million building this thing, and now if Metro's not going to operate it, are you going to step in, the Montgomery County Council, and say, okay, we'll operate it, or is it just going to sit empty and never actually function?
I'm sure it will function, but it will function in a different way than was planned, and Metro had agreed, as you know, to operate it once it was completed. So obviously this is a change, and the county is going to have to react to it.
Mr. Andrews, let me ask you just a follow-up on that, though, because if you build a house in Montgomery County, you got inspectors out there crawling up your you-know-what, making sure that everything is up to code. Where were the county inspectors who were overseeing the construction of this, and why weren't they raising the flags earlier when these shoddy construction practices were underway?
It's a very good question. When Mr. Dice, who heads up our Department of General Services, came before the council a couple of weeks ago, I asked him, what would you do differently to avoid this in the future, avoid this happening again? What happened here? And what he said was that he would have put a construction manager, recommended that there be a construction manager from the county on site. Now, it's surprising there wasn't one. But look, the county council appropriates funds for projects. We review whether they're needed or not, and we make a decision, and then the executive branch implements and oversees the management or construction of the project and or contracts it out. And so in this case, the county is going to have to look hard at whether there needs to be a different approach.
Well, who's going to get fired for failing to monitor the construction of this $120 million public project? Whose head's going to roll over this thing?
That remains to be seen.
Well, I mean, that's sort of not a good answer. I mean, somebody needs to be held accountable for that. Why is it that when things like this happen, we'll go, oh, well, we got to figure it out now, but nobody actually ever gets fired?
Well, look, the county council doesn't fire executive branch employees. They don't work for the county council.
So it goes back to Ike Leggett.
The county executive is responsible for hiring and firing of executive branch
Do you think
employees.
that would be appropriate in this case?
I believe that it may well be appropriate, but it remains to be seen who did what, and it's premature to say that a particular person at this point is responsible.
All right, we're going to have to leave it at that. County Council member Phil Andrews, you're running for county executive. You already announced it, right? So you want to replace Ike Leggett?
I want to be the next county executive in order to restore the economic competitiveness of this county. I don't know if Mr. Leggett's going to be a candidate or not.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you joining us, and please don't be a stranger. I'd love to have you on as things develop in Montgomery County.
Thank you.